Hey guys, I'm Kevin with Victory 4x4. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install our Blitz sliders on a 100 series Land Cruiser. So before you get this slider installed onto the vehicle, you're going to want to grab your rock lights and get those installed in each end of the slider boat. For that, first step, you just want to be sure to remove this blue plastic coating because you will not be able to get that off later. And then these simply bolt down in here to the inside of this face so that they're nice and recessed when you look at it from the outside. There's provided hardware in the bolt pack with these lights. So you'll take the black plastic spacer washer, install the button head bolt and that spacer washer from the outside. Get the light lined up on the bolt and then use the provided washer and nylock nut in here. Once you're happy with that, you can go ahead and install the other 3 lights, and then you can either let these hang or just tie them up inside of here for now and wire those in later on. Now once we get all our lights bolted in place, we need to get the mounts on the frame before these can be installed. So before you get your front mounts installed to the frame, we're going to be reusing these 2 factory holes as mounting points right here. This is kind of above the transmission cross member and behind this front body mount. These factory holes, if your frame's anything like ours, are going to be a little bit rusty, so it's a good idea to take an M8 125 tap and just clean these out beforehand. Now you're also going to have one more M8 hole down here, and then on the passenger side specifically, just to the rear of this cross member, there's going to be an M10 hole on the bottom side of this frame rail that needs to be cleaned out as well. Now identifying which mounts go where should be pretty easy. They're going to have forward facing arrow cutouts here, and then the mount with 2 of these side flanges is going to be the front mount. You can place this up here on the frame, just above this cross member, line it up with those 2 holes you just clearanced out, and then take the provided 8mm flange bolts and begin threading them in. And that should hold this up in place for now. So with this hanging from those 8mm bolts, you'll want to get this drawn up tight to the frame here on these bottom flanges, and then you can lightly snug it up to hold it in place. And at this point, you're going to see that you're going to have quite a few holes that don't line up with a factory bolt hole like this one up here. So for those, you're going to need to drill them out to 7/16 so that they can accept our 1/2" self-threading bolts. Now there's also going to be some factory holes that are not threaded that you're just going to need to clearance out with your 7/16 drill bit as well, like the bottom 2 back here. Now as always when you're drilling, you're going to want to center punch each of these locations first, and then start small and work your way up to the appropriate size. So I'm just going to be using this stepper bit. Once I get close to 7/16, I'm going to stop, get an actual 7/16 drill bit to finish out the hole. Then for these 1/2" self-threading bolts, you're just going to need a 19mm socket and a fairly strong impact to get them started. Now I'm going to back this back out just a little bit, because it's a good idea to leave all these just a little bit loose while we get everything lined up and all those bolts started. So in this front hole on the bottom flange here, you are going to have one more 8mm bolt. Ours currently has a broken rusty bolt broken off in there from prior modifications, so I'll take care of that later on. Now for your rear mount here, it's just going to have one of these side flanges and one bottom flange, again with a forward facing arrow. It will line up right here, just behind this body mount, and it is going to line up with a couple factory holes in this frame. However, they are not threaded, so you can either place it up here, hold it, and trace those holes, or if you have access to a jack, you can kind of do what I'm going to do here and just use the jack to hold it up in place while I get those holes marked and drilled. Now you can already see that we drilled this hole back here during prototyping, but it also lines up with these two smaller factory holes. So just go ahead and clearance those out to 7/16 and begin installing those 1/2" self-threading bolts. Now some of these holes in here, especially the ones that are up higher on the mount, are going to be a little hard to get to if you don't have something like this right angle drill. So you might want to pick one up or ask a buddy if you can borrow one to get this installed a little bit easier. Once you have enough of these side bolts in place to hold the bracket, you'll want to come down here and do the same thing with these two bottom mounting holes. So then here on the side of the frame, you'll be installing this nut tab through the hole here underneath the body mount. You can fish this in, bring it back and line it up with that hole. And then you'll start your 1/2" bolt with a washer to finish out the hardware on this rear mount. So with our mounts in place, you can get your slider boat up here next to the mounts. In my case, I've got this boat sitting on a trans jack. If you're doing this on the ground, this is a really good place. You can just use a floor jack in place of that. And then what we're going to do is lift this up, align it with these mounts and the mounting holes, and then we'll be installing these 1/2" button heads along with serrated flange nuts on the inside of the boat. So with one started back here, I'm going to go up to the front, get another one started there so it's sitting relatively level, and then I'll come back and put in the rest of the hardware. So once all that slider boat hardware is in place and loose, you want to make sure this boat is centered front to rear on the vehicle between the wheel openings, and then you can go back in and tighten the mounts to the frame. Once you've done that, just double check, because obviously this moves around a little bit as you tighten them up, that this is still centered front to rear, and then grab a 5/16 hex to tighten down that 1/2" hardware to the boat. So after you get all that hardware tight, the last thing you have left to do is wire in your rock lights however you choose. So if you guys have any questions about this slider install or any other product we offer here at Victory 4x4, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us, info@victory4x4.com, or give us a phone call, 269-459-8447.